A sliver of hope, a sliver of silver in cloudy skies in South Africa when it comes to job numbers. South Africa's unemployment rate eased to 32.1% in the third quarter. 300,000 jobs being created. The Western Cape passing through a psychological barrier of the unemployment rate below 20%. It's very, very weird to think that we're celebrating an unemployment rate of just under 20%. But at this moment in South Africa, I think we should take every gain that we get. Joined now by Andrew Donaldson, who's a senior research associate at the South African Labour and Development Research Unit, joins me now on the line. Good morning, Andrew. Hope you are well. Again, we take every gain, every win we can get, and we should be finding positivity in a ever so slightly improved job rate in South Africa.
Hello, Lester. Yes, of course, it's good that the employment number is going up, but this follows a decline in employment in the second quarter, so you have to take that into account. And if you measure on a year-by-year basis, it's a 1.2% increase in employment, and that is not enough for a labour force that's growing at 2.5% or 3% a year. And I also have to say that most of the increase in employment recorded in this third quarter and over the last year is in informal employment. Formal sector employment, more secure jobs, are not growing. So we're still in a state of far too little employment growth, not enough focus on employment as the central priority of public policy. So we need to keep the spotlight on this.
You've been writing on the public policy when it comes to the state sector. There's something like 1.4 million public sector workers. In the medium-term budget policy statement 2 weeks ago, the finance minister said that Cabinet has approved a funding model for early retirement program. This is to reduce the public sector wage bill, 11 billion rand allocated over the next 2 years to try and get, I think it's something like 30,000 civil servants to retire early, but then at the same time try and retain critical skills. Talk to me about your thoughts about this particular program and generally about the perception or maybe the reality of a bloated public service, Andrew.
Yes, I don't think that this early retirement offer is a good idea. We did the same thing in 2019, and it didn't yield much by way of savings, partly because the people who take early retirement usually have to be replaced. And it's very hard to avoid people who are skilled and experienced who think, well, now's the time to go out and make another career for myself from taking advantage. It's very hard to limit it to the people you want to get rid of, if you like. But there's a more important point to make, and that is that we've now been 4 or 5 years in what the Treasury calls a fiscal consolidation phase. And when you're going through that kind of tough circumstances, slow economic growth, revenue's not rising, government has to trim its spending, then you don't want to use blunt instruments that cut across the entire public service. You have to do what Trevor Manuel used to say, you've got to choose. To govern is to choose was Minister Manuel's favorite phrase. And that's the problem, is we're not seeing choices being made about the things that need to be done and the things that no longer should be done by the state. And I really want to see the Treasury begin to use its own research, use the evidence that's emerging on what works and what doesn't work. And in the little piece that I wrote in the conversation, I gave some examples of things that should be closed down because we know they don't work. And if there's a problem with salaries, it's not the number of people government employ. We don't have a bloated civil service in the sense of too many people employed. We don't have too many teachers. We don't have too many policemen. We don't even have too many administrators.
On that, we have a reality of a 31,000 teaching per need to still be filled. We have a public sector vacancy rate when it comes to doctors of, I think, 22% in South Africa. We still have space to benefit the critical areas of a public sector. But what about the divisions that are not doing very much? There are 21 SETAs, sector education and training authorities, which serve no discernible purpose. Productivity, I don't even know how to benchmark that, because we see very little output from the 21 SETAs currently.
I agree with that. I think that the SETAs should be closed down. I think the skills levy is not a particularly useful tax. And I think that if we're interested in skills development and training, we should be putting more money into the colleges. Colleges are where people get formal qualifications, where you can begin to really train the engineers and technicians properly. SETAs don't do that kind of training. They're essential.
I think we are losing you there, but I think I got the meat of your offering. Really appreciate your time. Andrew Donaldson, he is a senior researcher at the South African Labour and Development Research Unit.